Hi, I'm Tyler. For years, I've heard people say, is the Constitution still important? Does it even matter today? It was made 250 years ago. I'm here to give some insight of the Constitution, why it was made, how it was made, and why that still matters today. I'm not going to get into the nitty-gritty facts of dates and places and times. You can find those facts somewhere else. I simply want to tell the story of the Constitution to give us insight to right now where we are. As you may already know, the Constitution is the foundational government document for the federal government in the U.S. It determines the powers of the federal government. It determines how people get elected and appointed and where their powers start and where they stop. It's the oldest constitution in the world, and to really understand the Constitution, you have to put yourself back into perspective of the people who wrote it. The framers of the Constitution had been under a corrupt government system. They'd gained their independence from the government, from a monarchy government, and now they were deciding what sort of government do we want to have in our own country? How do we want to rule our own people? So they began having this great debate and conversation all over the 13 colonies and said, what kind of government works best for the people? And they went back the last several thousand years of human civilization history. And they even looked in biblical times of Moses, and they looked through Greece and Rome and said, what type of government serves the people the best? And then they created a constitution after multiple drafts, and they didn't just sign it immediately into power once they created it. They actually released the Constitution into the public. They sent it to the colonies. The farmers, the teachers got to read this. And for the next year, they began a great debate of the Constitution. They released it to the public, and the people began to debate it in the newspapers. You had the Federalist Papers, the anti-Federalist Papers. You had multiple letters of pseudonames of people writing, debating specific parts of the Constitution, like should we have a standing army? How much tax power should the government have? How much power should the president actually have in our government? We don't want to resemble him as a king. We want a new type of government. And this great debate is super important because it actually took the Constitution and didn't just give it to representative leaders to decide, but it actually gave it to the people. The people in their own towns were debating this. People who didn't have access to social media to be able to hear and see what they were saying in their own private meetings, but they were actually able to see the debate in front of their own eyes in the newspapers. Once the Constitution was debated across the 13 colonies, and there were certain amendments made to change the Constitution to fit the desires of the people, they ratified the Constitution, and it's had an amendment process ever since. So it can be changed and modified to the times with this amendment process. And this is super important to today, is how many people actually know what the Constitution says. Many people say, well, it's outdated, it's not important anymore. But really, the Constitution was built to be able to be changed with the times. 250 years ago, the Constitution was really owned by the people. It wasn't just made for the people, it was from the people. The teacher, the farmer, they read it, they owned it, they debated it, they knew what it said. And today, there are many people who don't know what the Constitution says. And you hear many times in the headlines, that's constitutional, that's unconstitutional, but you don't really know what it means because people haven't read what it says. But it's really important right now. We have a great opportunity inside the United States to learn what our own government is and to share our own opinion of how the government should operate, of how it should be modified, of what's good, what's bad. These conversations aren't bad of, is the Constitution still relevant? But what is important is to come together and to actually share our own ideas to come to some agreement. Politics isn't a bad word. I know many people say never talk about religion or politics, but politics is not a bad word. Politics is simply coming to an agreement of how the rule of law works, an agreement of human rights and issues with the government of having too much or too little power. Politics is simply agreeing, compromising, sharing with somebody's ideas and compromising to some form of agreement. So we can look back and see how they did it in the past. The people in the past, when they wrote the Constitution, didn't agree on everything. They didn't agree on every little part. That's why they had these debates for a year. But what was important was they looked and they decided, how do we want to go forward? Let's make an agreement of how we want to go forward from right here at this moment. And I think this could really help our current times today in our own political divide. I'm Tyler Covington. I hope your tomorrow is better than your today. If you'd like to see more of these videos, you can like, subscribe, share this video. I'll see you next time.